Maximilian Crabbe, subaquatic researcher and entrepreneur, 1940 to 1999, from the CCRU Writings. Max Crabbe was born in Lewes, West Sussex, UK, on March 22, 1940, during Britain's most critical wartime year. His mother, Caroline, was a daughter of Vladimir Visbarov, white Russian immigrant and reluctant inheritor of the notorious Visbarov Library. His father, Edward, was a minor aristocrat whose staple of businesses in the financial and technological fields contributed significantly to British military intelligence in World War II and the Cold War, supporting innovations in mechanical cryptography that stretched from the special unit at Bletchley Park to Axis-related research in the U.S. Max's rebellious tendencies were evident from an early age. These culminated in autumn 1957 with his expulsion from the elite Sandwich College, Wiltshire, after an incident that apparently involved mescaline pagan rituals and a small caliber handgun. The following spring, Max was sent to New York to stay with his uncle, Peter Visbarov. In New York, Crabbe seems to have fallen under the sway of Visbarov's circle, developing a passion and interest in Ma ethnography. In June 1960, Crabbe traveled to Java to search for the remnants of the Diboma, Dib Ma people. Exactly what happened to him in the pestilential swamps and jungles of Indonesia remains a matter of dark conjecture, but it seems certain that the Ichthyophidian influences encountered on this expedition wormed their way deeply into his fate. Crabbe returned from the sojourn shortly before the year's end, triumphantly bearing his own translation of a previously unknown sacred incantation to the polymorphic sea beast deity of the Ma, the Nomo chant. Although throughout the 1960s and early 70s, Crabbe surfed the edge of the counterculture, involving himself in a variety of projects with figures such as Gregory Bateson, John Lilly, and Katie Shaw, his inherited business sense was unmistakably emerging. By the late 1970s, his interest in dolphin communication, cybernetic oceanography, and hydroacoustics had been leveraged into corporate assets, Crabbe Holdings, amounting to an estimated $2.7 billion US. Crabbe's growing reclusiveness took ever more extreme forms. By the mid-70s, public appearances were almost non-existent. The last verifiable photograph, taken in 1982, shows Crabbe floating in his technologically enhanced private swimming pool, his image little more than a malformed, shadowy blur. In January 1980, Crabbe founded the Institute for the Study of Binomics, appointing Katie Shaw as executive director. The Crabbe Institute's 1996 report on calendric reform contributed significantly to a number of discourses surrounding the Y2K time bomb. By the late 1980s, Crabbe Holdings is almost entirely dedicated to ocean floor activities, especially work on Bubble Pod 1, BP-1, a deep submersion habitat, aquaculture production, and research station, whose economic rationale was still not fully understood. Unconfirmed reports suggest that by 1990, Crabbe himself had become a permanent resident of BP-1, even though he was, by this time, suffering from a very serious medical condition of an unspecified, radically unprecedented nature. By the late 1990s, many assumed Crabbe was dead, with some even doubting whether he had ever existed. However, on the night of July 13, 1997, an Indonesian Coast Guard radio monitoring post picked up a mysterious transmission, consisted of barely comprehensible subhuman mutterings and croaks. Attempts to locate the exact origins of the signal were unsuccessful, with the most plausible estimates placed it in the depths of the Java Trench, reputed site of Max Crabbe's BP-1 Aquapolis. The content of this message has never been publicly released, but international security and health officials have described it as profoundly disturbing. Postscript. In March 2003, freelance reporter Iris Carver conducted an in-depth interview with one-time Crabbe associate and AOE informant Dr. Oscar Sarkon, then working as a semi-mechanical croupier at Wendigo's Decadence Den. During this conversation, Sarkon relayed his understanding of Crabbe's last days. On the night of December 31st, 1999, Crabbe attended a millennial ritual held in London under the auspices of the AOE by way of a carrier, or meta puppet, bearing him as a parasitic intelligence. This drastic measure was necessary because, at this time, Crabbe's own body was distributed between 72 cybernetically regulated biohazard pressure vats, scattered throughout BP-1. His meta-amoebic regression had reached such a nadir of disorganization that the only motive power remaining to him was slow sloshing. For reasons that remain obscure, it has been considered essential that Crabbe attend this ritual, conducted by consummate AOE insider Sir Christopher Steffens, now Lord Finsbury. In order to do so, he had participated in an elaborate body-swapping experiment with his chosen vessel, captured Hypersea Aqua Assassin Cargo 27. Sarkhan seemed unable or unwilling to comment further on the purpose or outcome of this extraordinary and almost certainly illegal event, but he left little doubt that the result was far from satisfactory for Crabbe, at least from a mammalian standpoint, since another entity seems to have repossessed the Cargo 27 meat puppet, casting Crabbe back into his tanks of slithering fish slime, with time only to bubble one last cryptic utterance: no more life.